This video is going to talk about ways you can differentiate instruction for your students while they're working in the guided lesson. There are a number of built-in features into conceptual math that will help differentiate instruction for students. Some examples are text-to-speech, number pads that can be used instead of the keyboard, and as a teacher, you can immediately differentiate instruction while students are working in a lesson should they be struggling. You also have opportunities for students to have choice where they can select the models that they want to work with as they're working. On the formative assessment screen, another opportunity for you to select a leveled lesson for students, and text-to-speech along with visual cues when students get strategic feedback. We're going to follow each one of those in more detail in a few minutes. But you also have to think about some of the teacher-facilitated ways that you can support students in differentiation, using things that you do in other lessons, such as pausing and doing a timeout, using the whiteboard to show and do an example together with your students, taking a thumbs up occasionally to check for understanding. Scaffolding is built into our curriculum, and it slowly decreases as students work through lessons, but you could use manipulatives, anchor charts, word wall, and other strategies that are readily available to also scaffold instruction for your students or provide them with challenges. Remember, productive struggle is good, but we do need to provide some students with those supports so that they can struggle and be successful. So things such as monitoring checklists, ways for them to go through cue cards and so they know the steps, different signals that you can use while students are working so that you are immediately there to help them with misconceptions. So being close by so students know that they can be successful with conceptual math while they're working independently. Now that we've discussed ways you can differentiate instruction while students are working in a guided lesson, let's look more closely at some of the features that are built into the guided lesson. To begin with, students receive strategic feedback each time they make an error. The feedback is provided so that students who have different learning styles will be able to respond. Visual feedback, text at the bottom, auditory feedback by clicking on a speaker, and of course, as a teacher, when you move throughout the room, you can rephrase the feedback and you can bring the students' attention to the steps that they need to take in order to correct the errors. Additionally, if students need more support, the teacher can click on the gear in the lower right corner and select one of the remediation lessons. Once the lesson is selected, the teacher puts in their password and their sign-in name and can click on OK. The student will immediately start working in a remediation lesson and doesn't have to go through a failure before that happens. Some students prefer to use a keyboard, some prefer the online number pad. The teacher can enable that at any point or disable at any point, and so can the student, according to their preference. As you know, at the end of each lesson is a skills check. Students complete 6 problems, receiving only feedback on whether their answers are correct or incorrect. At the end, their results are shown on the adaptive teaching screen. The teacher has an opportunity to conference with each student, ask questions, review the student's answers, clear up those misconceptions, correct the mistakes, and select the next remediation path. The lesson plan also provides you with ways to check for understanding. We call those indicators of student understanding. The teacher in this lesson could ask a student to skip count for them, to write equations on perhaps a wipe-off board. In addition to the skills check, they have that information readily available to see if the student has mastered the instruction. The teacher then can select the next remediation path, immediately differentiating the lesson for the student.